Well, welcome to those that are the attendees for tonight. I'm beginning to let everybody get in, so it's going to take a few moments for us to get everybody logged in. And I will let those know that are coming in. We have some announcements we'll be able to give you about the promenade and things are going on over there, as well as things that are happening over at Topanga. I talked to some of the people that are in charge of that yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we're able to make some disclosures on a few things that that's official, if you will. So we'll see how that ends up going for the evening. So there we are. So I'm going to go ahead and call us to order at this point, and a couple of housekeepings. I'm John Walker. I'm the president of the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization, and we are going to be obviously doing this by Zoom as we have in the past on it. It still is somewhat experimental to us, and some things work and some things don't work the way that we want them to. We keep that in mind. I will let you know that those of you who have questions, go ahead and post them on the Q&A location that's down below. That's where we get the questions from. There is an area where you're able to talk back and forth between each other if you wish to do that, but the questions will come out of the Q&As. If you have something that you would like to actually ask in person, if you raise your hand on that, we'll try to get to as many as we possibly can this evening, to see how that goes. So, like I said, it's an experiment. We do what best we can with those things, and there it is. So if we can, let's do a Pledge of Allegiance at this point in time. Who would like to do the lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Aaron, you want to do it for us tonight?
Oh, sure. Put me on the spot here.
Well, that's right. I don't want to put you on the spot to
it. No worries. Hand over your hearts.
Yep.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of
the United
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty
and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Well, thank you for that, Aaron, and for putting you on the spot with it, and well done. A couple of things I think that are of interest to us tonight. First is, if any of you should find that what we're doing is of value to you, please join our organization. We're not already members. We have a website, whho.com. That's how most of you got in. If you would join, it's only $25 a year for the whole household. We need your numbers. The numbers do speak. There is a certain quality to the quantity. The more that we have, the better that quality is of our organization and being able to get the political people to listen to what we have to say. So please keep that in mind, especially if you find that what we're doing this evening and have done in the past are value to you and to the community. We need you. We need you here. We need your voices. We need your information, and we need your membership too. So please do that. Also, we sent out the newsletter today, and in the back there are some advertisers that are there. Please honor them. Let them know that you saw their advertisements in the newsletter and that you're going to support them because they're supporting us. Very important stuff to do. Next meeting is going to be on April the 27th. We're hoping to have the controller, Ron Galpin, there. I had conversations with his office again today. They're still having some scheduling problems. Supposed to have gotten back to me a week ago. They said they'll get, hopefully tomorrow, they'll get back to me. We'll know if they're going to be able to be available. So if not, I can assure you we'll have somebody else's. Plenty of issues that are going on. Ron, I think we'll end up having some good information for us on some of the wasted monies that are going on, especially on the homelessness issues. How much it's costing to get some of these things built and where those monies are going to, I think are going to be probably an interesting issue for us. As I mentioned, I'm John Walker. I'm your president for the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization. I see Dennis DiBiase has just joined us. He is one of our vice presidents. Marty Lipkin, who also serves on the neighborhood council, is also a vice president. Nancy Porter is our secretary. Sylvia Murley is our treasurer. And we have some other board members. Aaron Williams is with us. He's one of our board members. Ari Coyne is with us too. Armin Hanassian is also one of our board members, used to be with the Department of Transportation, City of LA. Shelley Swartz is here, and Bobby Weisserman as well. So appreciate all of you being here to it. These are some of the faces, if you will, of the people who are around that try to help out things in the community. Couple of announcements for you that I think are somewhat of interest. There is been a lot of talk about what's going on over the promenade. I had conversations yesterday with Kim Brewer. She is the senior vice president for development at Uniball Radamco Westfield, and she's the one who's really in charge of all the development that's going on over Topanga right now. All that construction work you see, she's the one who's actually supervising that, making that happen. talked to her about what was going on with the promenade and the sale of the promenade. I also had conversations yesterday with Kevin Demoff, who is the COO for the Rams. He is the basically Rams manager. And I can disclose to you the following officially from both of them. The promenade has been purchased by the real estate arm of the Kroenke Group, which is Stan is the fellow who actually owns all of those. He actually owns the Rams. That is all that can officially be said presently. The real estate arm from that group now owns the promenade. They have bought it outright. I understand there's no contingencies on it at all. They now own it, and now they're going to go through the development process to it and see what they're going to what's going to end up being put there. So, is there any confirmation that the Rams are coming in there? Can't confirm that at this point. I can tell you, given the fact of who owns the Rams and that they bought that property, they're going to work and see what they can do and see how those things are going to develop. And I want you to know that we're right on top of that stuff. We've had an opportunity to actually meet with some of those individuals. We're pleased to have Dennis and Marty and myself meeting with them and with Westfield as well. And we're trying to stay on top of that to make sure that anything that does come into that location is going to be an upgrade and a benefit to the community as well. Also, I'll let you know that Kim Brewers has indicated to us that over at Topanga, the AMC movie theaters are going to be moving into there in June. So they're going to come out of the promenade and they'll be over there and should be open in June itself. That's not that far away. There are other things, the food courts and what have you will probably be coming up later on in the year. There'll be other announcements on that coming up pretty soon. Kim indicates on that. So whatever that's worth to you, you've gotten the official word from the actual people that are involved with it now, as opposed to trying to read stuff out of newspapers, figure out what's going on. Well, tonight we're going to talk about the West Valley Food Pantry. We have Stacey Brenner, who's here with us. Stacey is of Brenner Consulting Group, spokesperson for the facility. We're going to also have Kim Thompson, who's in that particular area, one of the residents there, who'll be able to speak to us a little bit about what the practicalities are from their concerns about the location as well. Stacey is the official spokesperson, as I said, for that. Stacey, I generally refer to you and those that do your type of work as expediters. I don't know if that's pejorative or not, but I know that your work is you're very diligent in all the work you do. We're trying to make sure that facilities are able to get through the gauntlet that the city puts up on trying to get things approved. And we take our hat off to that. It's not an easy process. We understand that. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Stacey, for 5 or 10 minutes worth. What is going on over there? What is the food pantry doing, and why are they doing it? Where are they going to do it? How long are they going to do it for? And what is the situation? The floor is yours.
Great. So just a little bit about me. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Appreciate your making time for me and for the food pantry to present here to everybody. So again, my name is Stacey Brenner. I'm with Brenner Consulting Group. And I think we used to be called expediters. I don't think that's a very fair word to describe us anymore. We call ourselves processors. I
will change that. My apologies.
That's okay. Nothing is an expedited in COVID world anymore. Our firm actually does land use consulting. We do processing through entitlements, and we also do land building permits and approvals. So we see it from all angles, from A to Z. I actually represent the food pantry. They are, for those that don't know where it's located at 5700 Rudnick. And we are here tonight to discuss a conditional use permit. That's an application that has been processed through the city of Los Angeles. Again, this is a conditional use permit. The only reason why we're here. This is for a new building on the church property. This is not an expanded use of their facilities. This is a new building on the church that the food pantry will be operating in, and the food pantry will be giving back the building that they are currently operating in back to the Sunday school, which has been dislocated from their facilities. So again, conditional use permit for a new building on the church property. That is why we're here. We are only here for that very reason, at least for the city's application purposes. This is for the existing permitted and continued operation of the food pantry, which again operates out of the church I have a presentation. I don't know if you want me to ever put up something, some slides, some site plans, some information. Happy to do that. It's ready to go if we need to, for folks who haven't seen it yet. But the plan is to actually address the neighbors' concerns. This is probably our, we've had a zoning administrative hearing. We've had a plum hearing with the neighborhood council. We went to the executive board. We introduced ourselves. There was another hearing that we told them we were unable to be present at. They had a meeting without us being there. No action has been taken, just to put it out there for everyone to know. The only thing the action that was taken was that it would be a continued action from the neighborhood council. So we're going to be going back to their plum committee on that. We already did have our zoning administrator hearing, which I just mentioned. And the zoning administrator left the public record open for 45 days, which we are currently in that time period right now. The food pantry believes that it's going to be a better operator in the neighborhood with the relocating themselves to the new building, which is going to be on the northern side of the property. It's going to be a 6,646 square foot new building, 1 story. It's going to be in 2 phases. The first phase is going to be where the food pantry is going to operate. The second phase of that building is going to be where the church facility will primarily use that building. There's typically about 17 cars that are stacked on the street to enter the facility. The facility currently operates in the southern parking lot. That's again going to be moved to the northern portion of the property. There's a current parking lot on the facility right now. It's going to be redone. It's going to be expanded slightly, the parking lot, to be able to queue more cars on site. The queuing of the cars for groceries is going to be about 9 cars. Just to clarify a couple of items on the notices, it said that it serves 6,000 they call them clients. It didn't really qualify what those 6,000 were, so I'll go ahead and I'll do that for you guys. They actually in total have 10,000 in their database. They serve about 700 families a week. And those are primarily individuals or families that are just having a hard time in life. Less than 2% of the total food that gets handed out is to homeless people, and that's about 40 a week. So 700 families get served, or clients get served a week, and of those 700, about 40 are homeless or unhoused, I should say. The church and the food pantry have equal concerns with the encampments that were nearby. They've had to increase their security as a result of it as well. They too have had to call the police. They've been working with the council office as well. So they echo a lot of the concerns that we've actually heard complaining about the food pantry. The food pantry and the church have actually are probably in concurrence with a lot of what the neighbors have heard in regards to the crime and the loitering and some of the trash that the volunteers for the food pantry go around and they pick up a lot of that trash. They try to keep a clean, combining 2 words into one, nice and neat location and facility. They try to be good stewards of the community. A little bit about the operation. So they operate, they open at 9 o'clock in the morning and they go until about 2 o'clock, Monday through Thursday. They close at 12 o'clock on Fridays. There's about 6,000 families, just under 6,000, I should say, that are served within a mile radius of the food pantry. So this is truly a community-based effort. There are folks from outside that do come to the food pantry that are more than 1 mile out, but the majority of their clients do come from within 1 mile of the location that they're in right now. The food pantry did start out in 1974. It's been in operation since then. It has grown over the years. It started out as a closet on the church facility and has grown. The food pantry was the only food pantry in the whole Los Angeles basin that was open during COVID. the beginning parts of COVID, I should say. The food pantry had to learn pretty quickly how to adapt to the new county and state regulations through COVID. And the result of that, there was a significant uptake during those times. It has since been decreasing. They're starting to see those numbers because other food pantries are coming up. They do not serve meals. This is strictly groceries that are served to families. The groceries are actually put into the trunks or into the cars. That whole process, by the time that they're on site, they get the groceries and they exit is 1 minute. Most of the clients are served by the food pantry with groceries for, on average, about 3 to 4 months, sometimes longer. Sometimes they have to come back. The clients are primarily folks who are socioeconomic hardships. They're struggling. And these are folks who need to make a decision whether or not they're going to have the power, a roof over their head, or they're going to get food on the table. Generally, each client comes twice a month on average. It's not weekly. There is one semi truck that comes on Thursday mornings. They're there for about an hour. They turn off their engine when they're there delivering the non-perishable items through pallets. But the majority of the food is actually delivered through partnerships with various grocery stores in the area. And they have a team of volunteers that come to the site on average between 25 to 32 a day. And a lot of those volunteers drive around and collect the food that's donated from those grocery stores, food that probably the majority of us on this webinar go and get. The motto is, if they wouldn't eat it, they wouldn't serve it, or they wouldn't put it in a grocery bag. The need for this is that the operation has changed because of COVID, and they are operating much more efficient and better as a result of COVID. And they realize that this is the operation that they want to continue with, which is why there's going to be an expansion of the parking lot in the northern area, in the northern portion of the site. This allows them to get people in and out much more quicker. This is a very humbling experience. A lot of the clients that are there do not wish they were there. It's not by choice, it's because of necessity. And they're embarrassed, they're down on luck, they're down on life, and they just need a little help. And so there's no loitering that goes around. They want to get in and they want to get out. There's no socializing. Again, it's about a 1 minute process for them to come in and get their groceries, and they want to leave. Any questions? I feel like I'm just kind of rambling on about the operation.
A couple of quick questions from me, but I noticed you use the word client. There's no relationship with them as far as any contracts. Whatever. You're using that term, if you will, to kind of change what it actually is. That's your term, that they're clients? I don't know anybody that calls them clients that are coming in. These are needy people, and they're not clients of. They don't pay any money to anybody. They're not clients. Am I correct?
They're just looking at people that they just serve. That's just the term that the food pantry has coined to serve these constituents.
It seems like, if I may, that when I hear something like that going on, I'm being sold. I'm a trial lawyer, and I know when we're doing with stuff on things, when stuff like that comes up, that's a red flag for me. You're not calling them what they are, and you're putting a different term on it to try to say what it is. And I'm concerned about that, because as we go forward, we're looking to try to get information here, not to be spun in some particular direction. And that's the caution to you, Kurt, for what you're doing. I mean, you said, for example, also that the people it just takes a minute to put the stuff in the bags, but I'm understanding from some of the questions we're getting in already that there are long lines that are there. And while it may be only a minute for one person to get it, nonetheless, from beginning of the event to the end of the event, is not 1 minute. There's stuff that's going on. People are coming in the cars. They're not turning off their engines. The engines are still running in there. Am I right, or is this? Am I off base?
That's not what I said. I understand why you think that. What I said was that by the time that they get into the parking lot on site, to the time that they actually get their groceries in their car, and then they get out, they exit. That whole minute, that whole process is about a minute.
Well, that's not beginning to end.
No. I was about to finish.
Okay,
I said at the very beginning that sometimes on average, about 17 cars that do line up to enter the facility. And so there are 1 or 2, maybe 3 vehicles that are there an hour, 2 hours before, and they continue to stack up in the queue along Rudnick towards Shoot. So that does happen. But by the time that they get into the facility, they got the groceries, they're out.
how are you handling that traffic that gets there early? Because you open up at what time in the morning?
9:30.
And sometimes they're going to be there like an hour, 2 hours beforehand. How is that being handled? Is anybody out there monitoring them or direct them where to be or in any way supervise them, or you just wait and see and you open up at 9 o'clock? How's that handled?
There has not been a problem about it. If there's enough volunteers that will go out and help facilitate and kind of shepherd them into the facility. Usually what they do is the few individuals that are there in their vehicles, they turn off their engine and just kind of wait. That's typically what they do. It has not been an issue. If it's an issue, this will be the first that we've heard of it.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Kurt, I'm going to turn it over to you for the same type of thing. And Stacey, you're really good on staying on time with that. You're under the 10 minutes worth of stuff with that. So Kurt, what's the position as far as you're a resident over in that location? You're close to it. What's been your experience with what's been happening over there? And what are your concerns about how this is going to go on in the future? And when you finish up with your stuff here, we'll come back and we'll start taking some more questions from the group too. And remind those that are listening, if you have some actual questions, put them in the Q&A and we'll try to get to those. And if you want to ask them live, go ahead and put your hand up and we'll see if we can get to some of you tonight. Kurt, you're on.
John, would you let me share a screen, please? Hello?
John, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're challenging me on the abilities to be able to do this. Let me see if I figure out how to get that done. I can share mine, but I've got to be able to get you to be sharing it too. There we go. I'll put it over to you you should have it now. There we go.
All right, I want to introduce myself. My name's Kirk Thompson. I live across from the Food Pantry. I want to thank you, Stacey, for your presentation, and thank you, John, for letting me speak tonight. I'm part of an ad hoc group of neighbors that surround the facility, and we have a lot of concerns about the expansion. We have so far 62 people on our petition. In addition, we have a letter from the Siena HOA that has 44 people on it. We're all opposing the projects, and I want to explain our reasoning tonight. I want to be clear that we support the mission of the church and the Food Pantry. We just think it should be in a more appropriate location that's more effective, where they can actually be serving more people. This is not I wanted to quote also the zoning administrator, Henry Chu, in the hearing last week. He said this is a land use decision. It's not a social decision. I want to refute the statement that it's not an expansion. This was an expansion that happened with the beginning of COVID. They went from 3,000 families to 11,000 families, according to Pastor Rand Reasoner. And that's why they had to take over the Sunday school and the community room. And now the expansion is just really being memorialized now with their need for a new building. There is no existing use permit. What they're doing right now is not permitted. If you go back to the use permit from 1963, they're permitted to conduct religious services and religious education activities. This is what the use permit says right now. Item 7 is clearly states what they're supposed to be doing on this site. I want to be clear that also, John, you asked me to present facts. The fact is that the zoning of this parcel is agriculture. It's not commercial. It's not a restaurant. It's not retail. It's agriculture. The owner is the Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles, which is a religious organization. So for them to be taking $3.5 million from Jesse Gabriel and the state is a violation of the principle of church and state and both the federal and state constitutions. Section 12.03 of the Los Angeles Planning Code, City of Los Angeles, states what the accessory uses of a church is. Nowhere in here does it talk about food distribution or food pantries. This is available online, section 1203. Stacey and the church has applied for a class 32 section CEQA exemption. CEQA is a California Environmental Quality Act. They have to satisfy 5 conditions for this, and I don't think they satisfy any of them. A, it's not consistent with the general plan and zoning. It's not surrounded by urban uses. There may be habitat value there, and there are significant effects relating to traffic, noise, and air. And they do not have adequate public services. Right now, the roads are not appropriate for the semi-trucks they're bringing in. We really need experts if we're going to be convinced that this is an acceptable project. We need a traffic study, a noise study, a parking study, environmental study. That's what happens when you go through CEQA, and there's a purpose for having CEQA. We don't believe that moving to a bigger building will mitigate the effects on the neighborhood. In fact, they'll probably be magnified. So now garbage trucks come once or twice a day. They're beeping. This is a view out of my front neighborhood. I'm sorry, my front yard into the neighborhood. Let's see if I can. So these are beeping twice a day, and then cars try and get in. They're not watching, and this car almost gets in the way here, trying to get into the food pantry this morning.
How often do those come, Kurt?
Sorry?
How often do those come?
Usually about twice a day. They're generating a lot of garbage. So here's a picture of, these are the semi trucks that come in. This is on Philippine Street, and they block emergency access. They have nowhere to go. You can see they're blocking the street. I want to know who's going to pay for the street maintenance. These are residential streets and not designed as freeways or industrial loading docks. Who's going to be paying for all the weight on these streets? The garbage is obviously an issue. What happens is the patrons, I'll call them patrons instead of clients, they leave food they don't like in our neighborhood. They come pick up the food, they'll go through it, and they'll dump stuff they don't like. What happens also, I'm on the exit side, so the cars come in front of my house and they idle all day long, and they'll double park, and they'll do bartering for the food. Here's a picture of, this is a frequent site in the neighborhood. You can see somebody dumped food, and this is actually at the other church, the Methodist church down the street, but this is a frequent site in our neighborhood. Here's somebody that's going through her food in front of my house. Just stopping, double parking. So this is the queuing. This is what actually happens with the queuing. I drew a blue line. They start queuing, 6, 7 early in the morning, and they'll park by the preschool. They'll skip over Collins Street and run down Rudnick Avenue, and then frequently they'll be on to Miranda, going up and past the rec center, all the way to Shoot. Here's a picture of them going down Miranda. See all the cars parked. There's this is not even on Rudnick. This is on Miranda. Here's it going around Miranda, past the rec center. They have to block traffic because there's a homeless encampment across from the rec center right now. Right? You can see all these cars. And when they get to Shoop, they have to jockey position. They sort of have to double park and circle, and then they'll fight each other to get in because they really can't back up into Shoop because there's too much traffic. So another big problem is a lot of the patrons do not have cars, and they can't be in that fabulous queue. So this is the nearest bus stop, which is a half a mile away. So a lot of patrons come in with carts, and they have to walk a half mile down Burbank, down Fairlawn, down Philippine to even get to the food pantry. So I mean, one thing that we should consider when we relocate the food pantry is getting them near public transit. They're going to be removing an orchard. This is the orchard. We shot this picture a couple of days ago to put in their new building. There's an aerial shot of the orchard. You can see all the trees that will be removed. Frequently, I see rabbits, butterflies, birds. This is a habitat, and I think somebody should study what they're removing.
Kurt, can I bother you? Could you go back one slide?
Sure.
I got you here on this one. Are you able to point out by way of a mouse or something where the trees are, what the areas that they're looking at that this is going to be built in?
Let me try.
Or maybe just describe it if you can't put your cursor.
Well, the area to the upper right of the food pantry, where it says food pantry, is going to be the building.
Okay.
Oops, let's see if never use it. Can you see a red line?
Okay, yeah, I can. Yes, absolutely.
That's where the building's going to be. The new building wants to be. And then the new parking lot is going to take out all this.
Okay, so the access is actually going to be on that the large circle that you've drawn, and then the building itself will be in the orange area. It's off to the right of that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Sorry for the interruption. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm almost done here. There you go. Oh, I got the colors. So security, here's a picture I took of a police car. They had to call the police on one of their patrons because they were not stable and threatening people. So in any case, security is a real issue at this campus. There's no fencing around the whole campus. Anybody can walk in. Sometimes there, it can kind of take on a carnival-like atmosphere at the church. This is some people grouped up to the west of the church building. This is here's some transients that have been attracted. If you can see in the back, you can see on the other side of the street is the orchard they're going to be taking out. Apparently, it's also a nice place for sleeping. So this is the kind of thing that we see it frequently. They don't control security at the church very well. They have an on-call service that comes once in a while, but there's no fencing and there's no there's no armed guards or anything 24 hours a day. It's another picture I shot at the church. So in closing, I think there are better locations. I did a quick search on LoopNet, which is a commercial real estate listing. There are lots of properties out there, especially with the retail bust, that are out there where the church could probably do better economically by leasing something or buying something that's existing, that's on a street, something that is zoned retail, commercial, industrial. You can see these have big name streets like Canoga, Sherman Way, Ventura Boulevard. There's lots of places out there for them. Topanga Canyon Boulevard. I think part of the issue is they want to be on the church because the church needs them. I mean, it's owned by the diocese, and they are using them as a means to stay afloat. So in closing, our request as neighbors, I want to ask that the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association formally oppose this project. I would also like to ask that they request termination of the current illegal and unpermitted operation. Thank you for your time, John.
Good, I appreciate that. If you go ahead and we'll take your screen back off. There we go. Appreciate that. Just so everybody knows, the homeowners organization has not taken a formal position on this at this point. We're just basically gathering information, and we figure this is good for the community to understand kind of both sides of what's going on at this point in time. Stacey, if I could, I'd like to ask you, one of the things that popped up to me was about about seeing the police there, and there's no real fencing around this. As we know, for example, of what they're planning on the 818 hotel over in Ventura Boulevard, to use that for homeless families, that it's going to be fenced in. There's only going to be one way for people to get in and one way for people to get out. So it's monitored. It's not just a potential free-for-all, if you will, people coming in and hanging out. How is that being handled there as far as I'll call it crowd control, for lack of a better understanding? How are you handling that?
So we had a conversation with the senior lead officer, and they didn't think that there was an issue with the food pantry or the church. They actually applauded the church and the food pantry for the security measures that they've taken. Again, as I said initially, the problems that the community has with the unhoused is very similar to what the church has as well. If there's a disturbance on site, they try to take care of it immediately. So it's not a food pantry bringing it into the community issue. It's a citywide issue that is a result of what's going on right now, and they equally share the same concerns that the community has.
Why does this have to be on the church property? It seems that again, since it's in residential location, that what's actually going on has got much more of a commercial feel to it, with deliveries that are coming in, with people that are queuing up to be able to get stuff in and out. It seems like there should be a much better location for this rather than to do this on church property. With the amount of monies that you've already gotten, I think from Gabriel's office, that should be able to provide for a great deal of rentals on a location, if nothing else. Again, to maybe see how this thing is going to work out over time, rather than just saying, all right, let's just go build in a residential area that's not zoned for it, and you know, the heck with what it does to the community around that. Why doesn't this go someplace else? What's so magical about it having to be right next to the church itself?
I think there's a couple of issues that we need to address here. So I think you use the words feel. It feels like something, when I think that a lot of people feel differently about the use, and maybe a lot of people do feel like it's a commercial use. A lot of people don't feel that way. In fact, there's been more than 700 people that actually support this project. There's a lot of the neighbors that actually support this. So the entire neighborhood actually does not oppose this project. Speaking to the finances of it, that's not what we're here for. That's not what's being presented at the City of Los Angeles. What's being presented is a conditional use permit. And if you guys want to speak about the funding of it, that I don't know the nuances of what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, if it's going to go to a lease or if it's for the operation. What I do know is that it's for the food pantry's operation. I don't know if it goes to the leasing. I don't know the ins and outs. A lot of those monies are there's restrictions. And I don't know the nuances to that grant. What I do know, what I can tell you, is that money has not been given yet to the food pantry, and that money is considered a draw. But again, I think that's a discussion that needs to be had at another time, because I'm here just to process the conditional use permit. That's
I understand that that's one thing that's going on with the process too, but we're here to basically look at whether or not that process should be going on there or someplace else. And the
Sure.
process itself is, you know, you're asking for a conditional use permit, and as a result of that, there are concessions that have to be made because it's going to have an impact. That impact is the question of whether or not that impact can be lessened at another location. As you know, you're going through CEQA. CEQA looks to see whether or not, you know, there's an alternative program to it that makes better sense, or even no program at all that makes better sense.
Well, I think what you're speaking to is an EIR, and this is a class 32 exemption. CEQA EIRs have to do alternatives. This is not an EIR.
I understand that, but that's with any project. We start looking at it from a logical
Sure.
standpoint, Stacey. We always look at whether or not it should be built, whether or not it should be built, and if it's going to be built, what is there a better way to do it than what somebody is looking at? You know, so I came out of, and most people I think that are my age certainly came out of the idea, you know, it's my property, I can do whatever the heck I want to with it. Leave me alone. But what's happened now is we're on top of each other. You know, we got everybody that's here, and everything that you do on a piece of property affects other people around you. And you've got to be somewhat responsible in that particular area of what you're going to end up doing. Listen, there's people out there that need help, but there's also people that when you're helping them, you're going to create problems in the neighborhood. The question is this the best place to do it? Are there other places where you can reduce whatever the impact is going to be? So what do you say? Why on the property does this have to be?
I think it's a little more complicated than just that, but I'm going to try to give you a shortened version of that. First of all, this isn't allowed use. What was presented in Kirk's presentation, was factually incorrect. Looked good, but factually incorrect. This condition number 7, if you actually read the entirety of it, rather than just the highlighted portion of it, it actually, the last 2 words said temporary structures. So the intent of that 1963 original conditional use permit for a church facility to operate all church related activities, which actually this is, that they didn't want the sanctuary or the education school to be housed in temporary structures. That's what that condition really is. And I think it's presented, not whether it was done intentional or not, I don't know, but I'm just here to clarify what that condition actually is. As far as the actual use here, And one of the reasons why the food pantry is so successful is because people know where to go. This is a word of mouth kind of facility. It's also, it's a coalition of various organizations where they direct people when they're having a hard time where to go for groceries. If this was to be relocated elsewhere, there would be a substantial effort to do that. And granted, they probably would figure out how to do that. But the reality is that it's been here. For the most part, it's been working. There are some disgruntled and opposers to this. I understand. There's a lot of people that actually support this and believe it really does need to stay here. And so I don't know if we'll come to an agreement on whether it should be here or not, but I hear your concerns, and I think that there was an effort to look at other properties in the area to relocate. There are a lot of other variables that go into that. They have to look at the distribution, the amount of parking, the amount of flow. A lot of the same things that we're talking about tonight, that all has to be analyzed into the operations of a new facility.
Well, it's interesting with there being a need that's in the community. I think there certainly is. It's a question of how to properly fulfill that need. How are you making a determination of those people that are showing up that they actually are in need? I mean, if I was to show up and get in line, would I get a box of food? Why am I going shopping at Vons anymore?
Yeah.
How's that determined? It's just on are they screened in any fashion at all, or I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if that's even proper. How's that handled, if at all?
It is handled. I can't speak too much into the nuances. I'm going to be scratching the surface of this, and I'm happy to get the answers and circle back with you. Debbie couldn't make it tonight. She was at another event. She's the executive director, but it's my understanding that there's a database and they have to show proof of their household, how many people are in their household, so they get the appropriate amount of groceries, that they don't come back for seconds. But a lot of it is based on good faith, that they're down and out on their economics, and that they need a little bit of help.
Is there any I'll say religious proselytizing that's going on concerning this at all? None at all. All right. Very good. Kurt, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of her? And we'll turn it back over to some of the board members then too. Is there anything that she has said that you'd like to give a question to?
Well, she refuted the use permit, item 7, but I have not seen anything that has been a use permit that is permitting what they're doing. It just simply doesn't exist. And I'd like to see something that shows how they're permitted.
All right, Joyce Fletcher, you can unmute yourself. You've got a question apparently. Joyce Fletcher, unmute yourself and ask your question. Are you there, Joyce? Joyce, you've walked away from us. Are you there? All right, let's go on to Casey Brown. If you'll unmute yourself, Casey.
I'm unmuted. Synergy is a great word, and one that should be the goal of good leadership. Is when two or more parties come together and the result is a greater good than what the individuals can achieve. The food pantry is yielding the opposite result. The expanding food pantry is causing the neighborhood to suffer. You should never benefit one group while causing the other to suffer. This is poor leadership. Microsoft and Apple both were birthed in garages. What did they do when they expanded? Did they devour the neighborhoods they were started in? No. They moved to appropriate industrial spaces that benefited them and those they served. Stacey calls those who use a food pantry clients. She is using neutralizing jargon. It is her job. The clients are comprised of people struggling financially and the homeless. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 20 to 25% of the homeless population in the United States suffers from some form of severe mental illness. For every 4 homeless that come into our neighborhood to use a food pantry, 1 is suffering from severe mental illness. This is extremely dangerous. Stacey also uses a jargon such as compassion, as if everyone against the food pantry is against the plight of the homeless. This is disingenuous and a straw man. we, the neighborhood, support the food pantry and its growth in an appropriate space, not the church, but into a commercial or light industrial building. I worked in one that already had a commercial kitchen available. In addition, Stacey portrays those using the food pantry as embarrassed and discreet, wanting to get in and out, saying it only takes 60 seconds.
Casey, see if you can ask an actual question to Tracy.
Okay.
Let her
My
respond to what you said too.
is-
Do you have a specific question? Might be helpful to it too, to understand.
Yes, thank you. My question is, who of you on the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization would choose to buy a home next to the food pantry with all the problems that come with it? I'm pretty sure you would choose another neighborhood. The people that are being affected by this, a lot of them are going to sell their homes as a result, and they're going to have to disclose that this food pantry and the negative impacts that come with it will severely impact them. So I'm really, who of the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization would choose to buy a home next to the food pantry?
Okay, let's see if Stacey, you've got some comments to in regards to responding to Mr. Brown's comments.
I don't think it's appropriate for me to respond to who would buy a home in the neighborhood. I don't think that's an appropriate question for me at this time.
Do you at least acknowledge that if that pantry goes on at that location, that it's going to have an adverse effect upon property values in the location? Do you believe that, or do you not believe that?
No, I don't believe that, because I believe that the new building that the food pantry is going to be going into is going to help relieve a lot of the problems that we're hearing tonight.
So you think it's actually going to increase the values, and it's an upgrade for the community to have that there, as far as the property values are concerned, not from a humanistic standpoint of taking care of people that are in need, but rather from a financial standpoint of people that live there, that bought their homes there, that are hoping to be able to use them as their retirement nest egg, if you will. Are they going to be increasing the values of their home, or it's going to decrease?
I don't think it's I'm not a real estate agent or broker, but what I can tell you though is that more people try to avoid buying in neighborhoods where schools are than where churches are, and so that I do know, and I can't speak to the value of the home.
Right.
I think that.
Very good. Alex, you can go ahead and mute yourself. You've got a question, I hope. Alex, you're going to mute yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Alex Farasati. I'm a board member of Sienna at Woodland Hills Homeowners Association. I'm speaking here on behalf of 44 homes in our community with over 120 taxpayers living here. Our community is located on a hillside adjacent to the Prince of Peace Church, overlooking the church campus. The backyard of 11 of our homes, including my own home, directly face the church parking and face the proposed location of the new commercial building. After reviewing the City of Los Angeles Letter of Determination, dated May 14, 1963, it became apparent that the food pantry was never authorized. The church interpreted other church-related activities as justification to start and gradually grow the food pantry and the food distribution activity to the scale that we see today. Addition of a new commercial scale kitchen will make the current situation worse. The proposed project will negatively affect our property values. I'm getting to my question.
Alex, why do you think it would make it worse, Alex, for them to have that going on over there and to expand it? Why is it going to become worse?
Because we currently have traffic problem line up all the way from Philip Rim to Shoup. They want to propose this parking lot closer to Miranda, and the cars are going to line up all the way in Shoup Avenue. There is no room for them to back up to the residential.
Let's hear what Stacey has to say about that. Sorry to cut you off there, Alex. Stacey, what's going to happen with how are they going to handle that traffic issue over there? You're going to expand it, which means you're going to be able to serve a lot more people. How is that traffic going to be handled? How many days a week is it now going to go to, and at what hours, and how is it going to be handled?
Let me clarify a few things here that are misinterpretations of what the proposed project is. So the proposed project is for a new building, not an expansion of the current operations. This is not an expansion of more hours. This is not an expansion of more patrons, clients, whatever you guys want to call it, more people getting groceries. This is a new building simply so that the Sunday school can have their building back. Let me talk about traffic just for a moment. With the application to the City of Los Angeles, what's required is an LADOT traffic referral form. That traffic referral form is part of Class 32 CEQA exemption. And so as a result, we did have a traffic engineer look at the existing use, and it was determined that there was no need for a traffic analysis to be done because it's an existing use and we're not expanding the current use. We submitted that to the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, and they agreed with it. So there was an analysis, there was some VMTs that were performed, and that was submitted into the city.
All right,
So there,
I'm somewhat surprised that that happened, but because it seems like that traffic is going to be increased over there from what it was before the pantry started doing the work it's doing.
well, that's why we went to an expert to look at this so that we knew what we were dealing with.
Okay, well, Bobby, you've got a question. One of our board members, Bobby. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I attended the plum meeting last week. I think it was last week, and not one person came up and supported this from the community. And the food pantry, they all like what the food pantry has done in the past. I mean, it has almost a 50-year history of doing great work. And this, no one supports this. The church is squandering 50 years of goodwill, and no one will support anything that the church does in the future. You're creating a tense, not you, but the church is creating a tense situation with the community. And they're not, once you squander the community's goodwill, they're not going to get it back. No one wants this. You've said in the plum meeting, you've said here that you've got plenty of supporters. Where are they? They didn't show up at the plum meeting, and they're not showing up here. No one wants this. So I would just, it's really more of a comment, unless you want to comment back, which is
Well, I
fine.
think there is a question there too, Bobby, that where are the supporters? Do you have a list of them? Or are they, they're going to show up at some point in time with shirts with logos on them or something? What do you have as far as the supporters? Or is that just a good statement that's made from you doing your company work?
Well, I applaud that. Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Truly.
No, but the reality is that this was not very difficult to get supporters. I'm not sure, Bobby, if you heard, but I actually wrote down every single person that spoke at the ZA hearing, and it was about 50-50, the number of people that spoke. 50%.
Stacey, I was at the plum
Sorry.
meeting. I heard I was at the entire meeting, and the moderator asked anyone to support this, and not one person opened their mouth. There was not one supporter. And as here, there is not one supporter. Where are they?
I'm sorry that you think that's the case, but it's not. There were 50% of the people that spoke at the ZA hearing actually supported it. There's a petition that was sent around. There was close to 700 people that support this. We got support from most of the elected officials. This is vastly supported by the community.
You say you have a petition that's been signed. Does that exist someplace? Has that
Sure.
been posted somewhere?
Yes, it's already part of the administrative record.
It's part of the administrative record. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's not been in any of the hearings itself that we had with the administrative. It's part.
We have not hid it. We have made it very well known that there's a large amount of people that support this effort.
And by the way, on the hearing that's coming up, it's been continued over at this point in time. Those that wish to still make comments either for or against it still have an opportunity to place their comments into the administrative record. So just be aware of that.
Just one last comment.
Go ahead,
if you
Bobby.
have 700 supporters and you can't get one to the plum meeting or one here, quite frankly, how were they paid? I mean, really, where are they? Not one. Anyway, and that's the end of my comments.
Yeah, I don't know if we were at the same hearing then. Sorry, because there were a lot there.
Well, I'll have to leave that to those who were there as to whether or not your credibility is good or not on that, Stacey. I was not at that particular meeting, but obviously those statements can be borne out by those that were there and what have you. Let's see. Joyce, I was going to see if you're available. You had a question, Joyce. Fletcher, I know that you were there before. Go ahead if you unmute yourself. If you're still available, Joyce, go ahead. Joyce, you're not working with me here. I see you got your hand up and
He's on mute.
I know. You have to unmute yourself. Joyce, if you're going to ask a question, you got to unmute yourself. All right, you took a break, I guess, at this point in time. We'll put you back in the queue, and we'll go on from there. I think that the question I've really got on all this is what the heck has been going on in the community over there? It seems that there's this dichotomy of what I'm hearing is a lot of negatives from it, but yet Stacey, you're saying that there's not, and so I'm kind of concerned about that. Karen DiBiase, I've unmuted you. Go ahead and you can ask your question.
Well, can I say
Please,
something
go
to
ahead.
that?
Go ahead, Stacey.
So when I was first brought on, actually, I was forwarded a petition, actually by this very group, and maybe that it wasn't inaccurate, starting a petition from the Woodland Hills Homeowners Association.
We haven't started a petition. We have no petitions.
Okay. I saw a lot of the names on there, so I'm not surprised that we're mostly hearing opposition tonight. But I'm happy to share with anybody the letters of support we gotten from Board of Supervisor Sheila Keel's office, Congressman Brad Sherman, Assemblyman Jesse Gabriel. There were several immediate neighbors who live on the adjacent streets that support this effort. When we went to neighborhood council, some of the committee members actually came out and supported it. So there's a wide range of support. Just because not everybody could show up on an evening to voice their opinions on this doesn't mean that they don't exist.
I think that's fair, Stacey. I recognize that. I do find a lot of the people who I used to call expediters, if you will, would usually bust them in. Sometimes we had it happen with Westfield. We were going through this stuff on with the village when it was going through its initial permitting stages. They literally bust people in that had shirts on and had slogans on their shirts.
We operate more on an organic and holistic, and so we don't pay our supporters to come. They're all because they want to support it.
I think that's good. If you have a list, by the way, that you think should be up and available to it, we'll be happy to post it up on our website if you wish to do that. I think we probably should at least give some type of a link over to the administrative record, at least. Anyway, we'll see if we can do that. But whatever you might have that might be supportive of what's going on, that'd be fine. Karen, you had your hand up. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. Hi. Thanks for letting me speak. I have 3 comments. I'll make them very quick. The first one was, if there's a petition going around for any particular area, this is not something that should be taken at markets, etc., or in the community. This should be door to door to all of the neighbors within 500 feet at least of the facility where there's something going on, for 2 reasons. 1, to get their opinion, and 2, to let them be aware of what's going on. Secondly, I've been involved with a food distribution over in Moore Park. What they send out is for 2 days, there's a distribution of food. I have personally been there for several months, boxing up the food and distributing it. Everyone who is there must sign up in advance, must register to say that, yes, they have a family, how many are in their family. The queue to line up lasts for several hours prior to opening it up. It's only open for several hours and closes up at about noon or so as it goes through the line. And it is held in a commercial area away from neighborhoods, away from everything else. I was very concerned when I'm hearing you let anybody come through who wants food. You therefore will not know how many people would be going through and how to prepare for the amount of people that are there, and therefore potentially turn people away. So I've got a real concern that you need to look on your procedures of how you get that done. Those are basically my 2 questions.
Stacey, are you able to shine a light on that at all? Is it outside of your area?
No, I can speak a little bit to that, and I apologize, Karen, if that was the impression you got, but that's actually not how it operates. And I did say earlier that there is a database, and there's qualifiers, and they have to show proof that of the household members that are there so that they can appropriately bag the groceries for the appropriate family number of people in that household. So I'm sorry if you missed that part of what I said earlier. A lot of the misconception from this pantry versus a food distribution is that the food pantry here is open every single day. Most food distributions, which are mostly different from food pantries, most food distributions are only open one time a week versus a pantry like this one, again, which is different than a food distribution. This is actually open every day. And so you don't get the hours that that Karen just mentioned of people waiting and lining up. That doesn't happen in this kind of a operation. So I just wanted to make sure that there is a database. They are checked in, they are qualified, they have to show proof of the household so that the appropriate amount of groceries are delivered to that household and to that family. They are opened every day, and this is a pantry for groceries.
Very good. I see Kathleen Sterling from the Valley News Group, one of our people who writes a lot of stories about us here in the Woodland Hills area. Kathleen, go ahead with your question.
First, I have a statement. Stacey, with all due respect, using Sheila Kuehl as a witness is a fallacy. Sheila has not set foot in the Valley, I don't think, for the last 3 years. She's supported a number of programs that help the homeless without talking to the community. I don't think Sheila's reached out to anybody about this. I may be wrong, John, but my question is, can I get a copy of the list of your supporters? Because at the newspaper, the only comments we've gotten, honestly, about this have been against the food pantry. And I know several of the people who live in the community adjacent to the church, and everyone I've talked to is against it. So yes, if you have a list of the people, the 700 people in the immediate community within 500 feet or 1,000 feet of the pantry, I would love to get that list from you. Thank you.
Appreciate that for sure, and your comments about that, Kathleen. I think we all have to recognize that a lot of people end up supporting things, sometimes not really knowing what the details are going to be. I think there'll be some interesting questions about Jesse Gabriel and his support and the monies and how those monies came to you and how that ended up happening. Stacey, do you have any information on how that was generated?
A little bit of background. I think Sheila Kuehl, Board of County Supervisor, Sheila Kuehl is actually a wonderful supervisor. She represents a very large district. I'm not sure as to if she needed to speak to you directly. I would think that she would probably apologize for not doing that. But I think that based on the amount of supporters and the operation that's conducted here, she probably felt that she was supporting the community in doing that. So I can't speak for her, but I would only assume that. As far as sorry, John, can you repeat your question?
It was whether if you had any information about how the monies came from Jesse Gabriel's office. He's a representative to the state.
That's right.
State
So one of the just a little bit of background to kind of help understand that a little bit more is that the food pantry was actually looking to upgrade their operations prior to COVID. They thought that they were going to be heading in a different direction, and as a result of COVID, they had to change their operation, and they realized that their current operation that they have right now is a much more efficient and works better for everybody. The building is part of, from my understanding, is part of that stimulus package because of COVID. They were preparing to do a fundraising campaign prior to that, but then these funds became available. They applied for it and they were awarded it.
Okay, you at least recognize that there's some concern about state monies and taxpayer monies going to a religious organization, and understand obviously they have to separate those things out, but it raises some concerns when that happens. Listen, we have Tressa that's online from Sheila Kuehl's office. Tressa, it's good to see you tonight. Go ahead with your comments that you might be able to clarify some stuff about Sheila, and Sheila not coming out to the Valley anymore. Go ahead, Tressa. Tressa, are you there? I see you unmuted. I can't hear you though. All right, I guess we'll have to move on. We'll come back to you if nothing else. Are you there? You put your hand down. Okay.
Oh, I'm not from, okay, this is me. Stacy, how do I remove my
Sorry.
name?
I'm just trying to look at, I just saw the chat and it looks like it's Tessa Chernovsky and she says she's not muted or she's not unmuted.
Okay, we'll mute you
You were
back
trying to
up.
unmute the wrong person, yeah.
All right, well, it happens. Let's go back over then. Dennis, you've got some questions. Dennis DiBiase is is a vice president from the organization. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you. Kirk mentioned that, he was referring to condition number 7, and he highlighted a certain part of it for land.
You're locked up on us there, Dennis. Go back about 3 seconds in your conversation.
Yeah, no problem. The bottom line is, it sounded like, Stacey, that you were relying on the fact that there were temporary uses in condition number 7 back in 1963 that was allowing this use to happen. So my question, or my experience with this, is that those are usually seasonal uses or special events that a church would put on. And the reason why that condition, that part of a condition would be included in a church approval. Is this a temporary use, or how are you guys interpreting this as a temporary use, or relying on that condition to allow this use to be happening at this time?
Again, I apologize if there was a miscommunication in what I had said earlier. What I had said earlier was clarifying the condition that was presented and that it wasn't stated in its entirety. I am not stating that condition 7 in that we are relying on this conditional use permit based on condition 7. In fact, I'm saying quite the opposite. What I'm saying is that condition number 7 was not read in its entirety, and that condition states the sanctuary and the school education purposes, and that they cannot be I'm paraphrasing, it cannot be held in temporary structures. That has nothing to do with the other ancillary and church-related activities. There's lots of church-related activities that are part of this that are not explicitly stated. You don't need to explicitly state every single church-related activity that happens. But what that condition was stating is that they don't want sanctuary and education to be held in tents or temporary structures. I think that's where you were going with that one, and I would agree with you that they are not held in temporary structures.
Very good. Tessa, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dennis, you have another follow-up?
No, I'm okay. Go ahead.
Tessa, go ahead. You're unmuted.
So you can hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. You can't see me though.
Cannot see you. Should we see you? No, we can't see you.
That's weird. Anyway, so hello everyone. I am Tessa Chernovsky, and Stacey, I have known you for several years. It's been a while. And I simply wanted to say that, and I don't necessarily want to get into the fray here, but Supervisor Kuehl is supportive of this project, especially during COVID-19. Hunger and people at risk of homelessness and people really falling into poverty became, so acute and such a challenge that the Food Pantry really stepped up and provided absolutely essential services. Our understanding is that this project will actually reduce, if there's an intrusiveness in the community, the queues, this should actually make it less intrusive and sort of, put the building sort of behind the existing structure. So that would be the goal. And, these are really critical services for people who are living in poverty. And, I think we all have to, every one of us has to find a way that we can support these sorts of services. And in terms of involvement in the Valley, I'm Supervisor Kuehl's district director. I cover the West Valley and mountain communities. We are out there actually since COVID-19. We've been virtual for the most part, but every single day we're working in the San Fernando Valley. Anyone, I put my email in the chat, please reach out. And if there's any time later, I actually have some updates and announcements for you all to go into detail on other stuff.
We'll come back to you on that one, Tessa. I missed unmuting you before, my mistake. A little bit of difficulties for me getting things to happen here, but we'll come back to you a little bit later on, and hang on, and we'll
Sure.
get to those announcements too. Aaron, you've got some questions too. Go ahead.
Sure, John, thank you.
Aaron is one of our board members as well from the Woodland Hills homeowners. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hi, Stacey. I'm just trying to wrap my head around one thing, which, so you said it wasn't an expansion. You're I guess building new buildings for the children's facility that were taken over by the food pantry. Was that what the new building is?
I'd like to clarify, because I think that I'm saying it very deliberate, not to be confusing, but just to very clearly state, because there's a lot of misinterpretation, and that this is not an expansion of the operation. This is an expansion on the church facility. And so this is a new building. The parking lot's going to be expanded, and there's going to be a new building, a new addition, not a remodel, a brand new building. So I've never tried to hide that. Again, apologies if it's come across that way. It is not. When I say there's no expansion, it's to the operations, and I just want to make that very clear. They're not expanding their operations.
Right. So yeah, I did understand that, but I guess
Okay.
my question is, the need for the expansion is because the food pantry took over part of the church. Yes, the children's facility or the children's center, I guess. So the reason that they need to build new buildings is because the food pantry already expanded, basically. Is what my sense is. Already expanded.
You can say that the food pantry had expanded since its origin in 1974 to present
Well,
day.
but
Absolutely.
I guess, and maybe what I think I kind of ascertained from the neighborhoods as well as, before COVID, I guess, the food pantry was operating at a level that was perhaps sustainable by the neighborhood. I guess they can answer that, but I don't remember ever there being complaints before 2-3 years ago.
Well, I will say that the food pantry had, at the time before COVID, had wanted to build a new building. They just didn't have the funds to do it. And so this isn't just a new concept because of COVID and because they had to serve, more individuals or more households beyond, because of the other food pantries that had to shut down. This has been something that's been brewing and needing to happen for some time, even before COVID, prior to a lot of, what we're hearing about tonight. So the expectation and anticipation is that everything's going to go back to where it was pre-COVID. Now that a lot of the policies and regulations, that people are a little bit more familiar on how to operate and how to work within those county restrictions, even though they change constantly. But I think people organizations know how to adapt to them a little bit better than they did when this first happened. We were kind of an unprecedented, situation on that.
Stacey, with this new building that's being built, is it going to be used strictly for food pantry, or is it going to be doubling for other venues and other events that are going to go on at the church itself?
So there's going to be 2 phases of the new building, and the first phase is just going to be for the food pantry, and the second phase would be for use for the church, and that would be used under different funds.
The different funds to be able to construct that as well. I got you on that. I think Kathleen Sterling wanted to know whether or not there's any hot meals are being provided there to the needy, and if so, how often does that end up being done? And if so, are you attracting more homeless coming in?
So as I said before, that there is no meals being served here. This is a food pantry. This is a place where people who are unable to afford groceries come to get groceries. There are some individuals that are of the unhoused who come here, but that represents less than 2%. That's about between 40 and 44 individuals that walk up.
Interesting. All right. Chris Rowe, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Chris, keep it short and simple. We're getting late on time. What's your question, Chris?
I just want to comment that I've been supporting the West Valley Food Pantry for more than 22 years. I'm a former Scoutmaster and actually ran Scouting for Food program. And we would hold that in that parking lot, and that food would be taken and served 5 other pantries. So I definitely understand the need. And as a former West Hills Neighborhood Council board member, the pantry came to us and said that the people that were being served were primarily the seniors that are living in the community that were what's called house rich, but maybe live on Social Security. So they have to choose, as Stacey stated, actually what we were told back then, between buying medications or buying food. And so there's definitely a need for it. But because of the expansion that I'm seeing there and the problems in the neighborhood, and I know some of the neighbors on those streets, I would recommend an expansion of the facility to a more commercial area where they have the parking. It's not disruptive to a single family neighborhood. I do want to continue to support, and we do support both financially in our household and with donations. My husband drops donations at the pantry. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's sort of one of the interesting things I think that's going on with all this, Stacey, is there's a lot of people that would like to support what the church is doing, but it's just a question of whether or not this is the right place to be doing that. And I know that you're hired to make that happen. You're not hired to make the decision whether or not it should be in another location or not another location. But you have to at least at some point go back to the people who are employing you over there and say to them, listen, this is what I'm getting back for the community, that it's everybody likes the idea of what the church is doing, but it's just a question is it in the right place? I don't think anybody says it shouldn't be done. It's just becoming a question of whether or not this is the right place for it. Kathleen Sterling, you got another question for us? Can I mute?
I just want to clarify a point that pre-COVID, the Rotary clubs did serve hot meals to the homeless every Friday on a regular basis at the church. So they were serving hot meals and they were encouraging the homeless to come to the church.
So they did do that in the past then?
Yeah, well, pre-COVID, everything changed with COVID, obviously.
Yeah, I got you on that. That's true.
I'm sure that happens. And again, I want to point out that we are talking about the food pantry. We are not talking about the church sending out meals. The food pantry does not serve meals.
Well, is there anybody on that property that is serving hot meals?
I don't know that answer. I would assume that there are occasions where they do that.
Okay, so
but I do not know that.
Okay, you're not saying there don't. You're just saying you don't know, but you think that that's a possibility at least.
What I can speak to is that the food pantry does not serve meals. That is what I can tell you here.
Okay, fair enough. Very good, Chris, and thank you for your questions on that too. We have one from not sure if I can pronounce it, Parthia. Parthia, you have a question, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Manjula Modambi. I'm Partha Modambi's wife. I'm speaking on his behalf. We live on the hill right behind the church in that gated community, and our backyard faces the parking lot and other structures. My question is this: the church seems to rely heavily on volunteers. From our backyard, over the last 10 years, I have seen that trees have grown that have not been trimmed. They're like 40, 50 feet tall. And one day a sprinkler was on for 8 hours and I couldn't do anything about it. And I was told that the volunteer who turned it on forgot to shut it. And there were so many, there are dried bushes, which pose a big fire hazard. And then the whole thing seems to depend on volunteers. I don't know whether these people are responsible only for food distribution or to maintain the property inside the church, because if you look from my backyard, it's really become a forest and there is nobody to take care of it. And it always goes to the fact that there aren't enough people or volunteers. Now, what's the guarantee that anything is going to be taken care of? Even the streets where food boxes are thrown by volunteers. This is not something that they are paid for, and volunteers are, of course, we also volunteer for some stuff, but there's a limit to how much you can expect out of volunteers. And then that was one thing. And secondly, yes, I think there are many people who support the church, and we do too, and we would like to support the homeless people from being starving. However, how many people have said that the church approved this building are actually in our neighborhood, I would like to know. I don't know how many people in the neighborhood really want to support this because.
Stacey, you got a list you said of a number of people that are supporting it. Are those people that are right around the area? Or are you just talking about people that are supporting it generally across LA? I mean, it's, you know, I'm hearing the support issue that's going on. And also, are there some restrictions on the hours of operation to where it can only be done in a certain period of time, and that's in certain days of the week? Has that been worked out? And is that part of your request? Forgive me, I haven't read through the application, which I should do.
So I can help you through the application because I have a presentation for that and I can tell you what it is. So it's going to maintain what it currently is, and that's the current operation is Monday through Friday, and they start serving at 9:30 and it ends at 2. That's when they serve. Staff gets there generally around 7 in the morning. There's very little staff, but there are more volunteers that come. But starting to the distribution starts at about 9:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not a free-for-all, if you will. There's specific hours and it's being requested for some specific hours. Shelley, one of our board members from the Woodland Hills homeowners, you've got some questions too. Go ahead, Shelley.
Yeah, thank you very much. I listened to one of the first Zoom calls with Pastor Rand, and he freely admitted that the church, when it's not open to the food pantry, would be using the commercial kitchen and the other facilities for funerals, weddings, events at the church. And I think that's a problem for a lot of people. And that goes back to the issue of separation. You're getting this grant, and then part of this facility is being used to profit to the church. And then I remember also saying that there was going to be showers. Can you explain why you would need showers to be included in the facility? And also what Pastor Rand said. Everyone who was on the call heard him admit that it would be used by the church for their profit.
I'm really glad that you brought this up, Shelley, and I think these are excellent questions. That meeting happened prior to me coming on board. And I will tell you that if everybody, what I believe is happening is basing their opinions based on that meeting. I encourage you all to read the application, because everything that you just said, Shelley, is not what's being proposed to the city, and it's not part of the conditional use permit. There is no commercial kitchen being used, being proposed. The church would not be using that food pantry portion because it's going to be primarily a warehouse for the food pantry. I don't think that the church wants to have any uses in a warehouse with, grocery related items for pictures if people are taking weddings. That's not what this is for. I think originally the intent was for that, but that meeting happened prior to the application being submitted to the city. And there are no showers that are part of the proposed application either. So I'm glad that you brought that up so we can clarify those points. Thank you,
Stacey, it might
Shelley.
be helpful if you can, if you've got the application, you might be able to ship it over. We put it up on our website too, and people can pull it down and take a look at
Sure,
it.
and it's available online too as part of the administrative record too. So that's pretty easy for folks to get.
Maybe if nothing else, you shoot me an email with a link to that. I can put the link up.
Sure,
at least, on that.
absolutely.
That'd probably be easiest at that point. Listen, we're running out of time. We're getting close to the 9 o'clock hour. What I'd like to do, if we can, is to give Kurt about 2 minutes to respond to things that were there, and then Stacey, let you come back to what was there. But before we do that, let me go back over to Tessa. Tessa had a few things she wanted to say. And so Tessa, if you've got some more, let's go ahead and fill us in on a few things. We're running close to the time here. So what you got?
Sure, I'll just take a minute. I actually wanted to mention that Supervisor Kuehl, as many of you know, is not going to be running again, but twice a year she has discretionary grants that she makes available to nonprofits in the district. This will be her last round of discretionary grants. We encourage people in the district, nonprofits, to apply. The deadline is April 1st. I can put in the chat the link, so we'd only have a few more days, but we would love to have people from Woodland Hills, the nonprofits, apply. Another thing,
we might take a shot at that because we're a 501c4. I don't know if we'd qualify for it, but
I don't think so. It's a 501c3.
No, we're not C3, we're C4.
Yeah. Another thing is you may have heard about a new program called Opportunity LA. It's a collaboration between LAUSD and the county and the city to have free savings accounts for children, LAUSD students starting who are in the first grade with an initial deposit of $50 that needs to be used for college. And the goal is to encourage children to, go to higher education, and having a savings account is an excellent incentive for them to understand, sort of to anticipate that, gosh, this is for me to go to college, and it begins to broaden their their sight about what they're capable of. If you want information about it, I can put that in the chat as well. It's really exciting. It starts this month, and every child in LAUSD in the first grade is actually going to have a savings account opened in his or her name. So it's already starting.
Very cool. Go ahead and put it in the chats before we end up breaking. Get a couple of minutes before we end up going out. So those who might want the information can pick it up from that. Kurt, let's go ahead and give you a couple of minutes worth of time to let us know and respond to some things, and whether or not you've been convinced about anything, or there's some things that are bothering you that weren't bothering you before. And then we'll give Stacey a chance to finish up on that with another about 2 minutes worth of time. We're trying to get out of here by the 9 o'clock for sure. So keep it short and simple. About 2 minutes worth would be good.
Okay, John, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. I want to amplify the fact that there are no supporters on this project other than Stacey, who is a paid consultant, and a representative from Sheila Kyle's office. So, I mean, there's just nobody here. I mean, where are the food pantry volunteers? Where is Rand Reasoner's congregation? I'd like to ask Stacey. Stacey, I think you're in a tough position, and I appreciate that. I'd like to know: do you live in Woodland Hills? Are you a neighbor here? Do you live in the city of LA? It'd be interesting to know. But between the traffic, the noise, the crime, as neighbors, we want our voices heard. We think there are better locations for this. We support the mission in a better location. Let's get them someplace where they can do good work and not be impacting neighbors. I think the separation of church and state is completely relevant. We have a letter from the Americans United. I have not heard anything about the title of the property being changed to a 501c3. It's still being with a religious organization, and I just think at this point we really need to come together and find a better location for this. Let's do it. So thank you for your time.
Very good, Stacey. You're on for like 2 minutes worth or so, and let me know what your thoughts are, and what's the last pitch you've got for your client at this stage. Things that we should know, or places we should go to find out more facts that can persuade us one way or the other.
Sure. Every time I hear someone speak, I get a little more glimpse of some of the inaccurate information. So let me just clarify a couple of things that I just heard. One is that Food Pantry actually operates under a 501c3. There's lots of religious organizations that operate non-religious vestries. SOVA, for example, is another food pantry that operates. That's part of a Jewish organization, and SOVA is not a religious activity. So this is not uncommon. It happens, and so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is a 501c3, and that there are activities that happen that are church related, that are not necessarily religious components to it. Another item is that I encourage everybody to read the application. It is clear to me that a lot of people haven't, and that they're basing their opinions based on what happened prior to the application actually being submitted to the city. I think that unfortunately, whatever was said before shaped a lot of opinions, and that's it. And there's nothing I'm going to say or do that's going to change anything or to help. I'm trying to help as much as I can with the factual information. But again, I encourage everyone to read that application, because I think a lot of the answers would be are included in there. This is an allowed use. A conditional use permit is an allowed use. It is allowed based on the conditions that are applied to that use. And so this project is going to remain where it is, should for some reason that application is not effectuated with the approval. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that. If you're unhappy with it now, help us get to a better position with this proposed project. Otherwise, it's going to stay in its current location as it is. And so we're trying to help with the relocation of the food pantry from the southern portion of the property to the north with this new building, and with an expanded of the parking lot area so that folks can queue on site. There was an air quality analysis that was done. There was a noise analysis that was done. All of the environmental components that we've looked at, there is no impacts. This is an existing use, permitted, allowed, and that we are going to continue to operate. In fact, we're anticipating it to go down in the number of people that actually go and use this much needed service. Happy to answer any other questions. But again, I encourage you to look at the application and get a better understanding.
Stacey, if you would, please send me that link. We'll put it up on the website tomorrow. For all those that are listening, what have you, be aware that this is being recorded. Well, a couple of days and it will get posted up if you need to go back to it. You have friends and neighbors that want to pick that up and take a listen to it. Listen, we appreciate all the hard work that both of you have done on this particular issue. This is the type of information that helps us all in the community to be able to hear what's going on and to see the faces that are behind all this as well. Again, for those of you who are not members of the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization, we encourage you to join. Go over to the website, whho.com. That's where you'll find the links that Stacey's talking about tomorrow. There's an application that's there just to hit a PayPal. It's $25, a very easy one to do. And we deeply appreciate your patronage on that. We hopefully are going to have Ron Galpin at our next meeting in April. Please stay tuned for that. As things begin to develop further with the promenade area, by the way, as everybody knows, that there's always been entitlements that are there. For any of those things to end up changing, they're going to have to go back and do some hearings on that. That's a work in progress. And so as to what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, we will be, again, informing you on that and watching that very closely as well. So we thank you all for it. Stacey, thank you very much for your time and taking some of the barbs, at least, that came about with this. Kurt, thank you too for being here. And again, to our board members, thank you. We could not do this without our great board here. We are all volunteers working very hard on these things and trying to make our community a better place for us to live, work, and to play. And let's go play. Thank you all. We'll say goodnight to you and deeply appreciate it. Good night.